Hello, hello, and welcome. Looks like we got a bunch of people trickling in. So I'm Michael Musselman. I lead up the technology and strategic alliances at Lacework, and tried to figure out how to cram like 3 hours worth of experience and knowledge into a quick 20-minute session. So if we don't get your questions answered, I'll join the lounge afterwards, and we can take some other questions. So I kind of rethemed the deck, which is I know this is really about co-sell and best practices and how we do it at Lacework. But actually, I realized, one of my favorite sports is football. And if you're just good at offense and you're not very good at defense or special teams, you're probably going to lose the game. So I thought through, how do I kind of make this about a little bit of everything? And so, like all presentations, I think they work really well if you try to start with a joke. So the truth is that the CSP or partnerships are super easy and straightforward, right? Like just an easy button. That's what everyone thinks. That's what your executives think. And I think all of us who are doing this know that that's both not true, and anyone who tells you it is probably selling you something. So but I did want to kind of focus on like what have I learned and what could I share with others. And uh, I've just realized this is all about expectations. And so if you're capable of setting a realistic expectation with, and I have some issues here, or I'll explain more, then you're probably going to fall right on them. But if the expectations are set by someone else or you're not setting them, that's going to be really hard. And so I've kind of whittled down the presentation to three buckets, and I'll dig into the details of those. So just to kind of kick things off, is it's kind of a long-term thing. So I think partnerships with the cloud service providers, hyperscalers, AWS is a good example. It's a very long-term thing. And then I've coined this kind of five C's, and I'll define what those are. And I have some assets, and I've talked about this stuff longer term. I'll give you guys some resources later. And then obviously, a topic I've never really talked about in previous, but I started thinking about other resources that I've hired or that are working with me or for my team that are probably less critical. But I realize over time, over the arc of a partnership, these are all very critical things that you need to be successful. So, again, at the top, like long term partnerships, which I think these are, require very long term expectations. And so, if you have a very short term expectation, you're expecting something now, you're probably going to be disappointed. Your executives, your leaders are going to be disappointed. So, naturally, and I heard some of this in the sessions yesterday, and I'm sure there's a reoccurring theme, which is like start with your executive leadership team. And you kind of have to explain the rules of the game. And the thing that I realize is that most of my leaders, channel leaders, CROs, CMOs, CEOs, they just don't really understand the give and the get and how this works, and that maybe AWS or Google aren't really a channel, right? And we can't expect the same kind of things as maybe we do with our other, routes to market. And so just assume that they don't. Be very patient, but there's a lot of enablement here. Certainly, I heard it yesterday. Mike McGrath, I think it's Sistig mentioned it, but like have a good partner plan, have a good business plan. Think about the expectations you're setting, and think about everyone that you're going to talk to. So specifically at Lacework, I think about my CMO, CRO, CEO, pick the C level and VPs, and just start thinking about from their perspective, from their KPIs. If I don't know that, I'm going to ask them, hey, what's success for you? What are you being measured by for the business? And then I'm orienting what we're doing with our partnerships and the marketplace and co-sell. I'm orienting it around what's important to them. And that's important because I want them to help. Find the right KPIs for your business. And I constituted with pick three. I think most of us, I have a job that probably I could do 100 things. I could probably do 10 things really poorly, or I could try to do one or two or three things really, really well. So I try to think about this for prioritizing time, resources, my team's time. Is just like, I'm going to do three things really, really well. Anything more than that, I have to set those expectations that this, is this more important than one of the other twos? Because otherwise, we're probably not going to do it that well. And then one of the things and tricks that we did here was I went straight to the CRO and president early at Laceworks partnership. They said, "Can I have access to all of Salesforce, all of our CRM, every opportunity?" And I have the permission to register that with our CSP partner. In this case, it was AWS at the time. And once I got that permission, this really changed the dynamic of co-sell. And any seller at the company that wasn't sure, had a little friction or pushback, like their boss's boss's boss was okay with this, like just jump in the boat. I'll help you through this. The other thing, look, I've not been successful in all of these, but like try to remove as much compensation friction as possible. That's something I'm constantly asking for, looking for angles, tactics, tricks, spiffs, whatever it is, comp neutrality. If you can get it, that's what you want. So the elephant in the room is always about sourced, and I wanted to bring that up here. Uh, Cloud service providers will never understand your business. They'll never care. They have 250 of their own services or more to sell. That like just live with it. But be thankful for all of this inbound stuff that you get, marketing stuff, rewards, gifts, I call them. Just be super thankful. They took the time to think about you amongst your other peers. Go figure it out together. Um, and also, I think about, like in the world of source business, I think about where can I get it from? Like, how can I grow this naturally? And so I look to like top of the funnel marketing, getting resources, SAs, CEs, other technical resources to join us, our speaking, speak to us, speak to our sellers. MDF is a huge one, marketing development funds. We get that. We get a good 10x return on this stuff. It creates top of the funnel. AWS is a good example. It's happy to give me these gifts as my partnership. That's awesome. I'll take that and maximize the value and the outcomes from it. And then obviously bottoms up. I think at the end of the day, if you're trying to get source business, there's a lot of layers to the cake. This is really about one seller with one seller working backwards from a customer and trying to solve a problem and then replicating it to another one. And I have a kind of thing like, what am I after? I'm after unfair favoritism. And how do you get that? Because friends help friends. The third thing here is enablement. So I think most everyone knows this, and I'll just build it out, is like this is all the internal selling that you're doing to your executives, to your sales teams, to your engineering teams. You name the function in the business, you're doing a lot of that stuff. And just like this presentation, I realize with a lot of folks, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And if you're excited about your program, if you're excited about this partnership, what you're doing, others are going to feed off that energy. And so it's really important in how you say things. And I constantly remind my team all the time about this, especially in front of sellers, the cloud service providers, sellers, CEs, all that fun stuff. Make your things very crisp, keep it simple. If you do 100 great things, focus on 2 or 3 that you do really well or unique, and then just kind of drill that over and over and over and over again. Keep it simple and always try to come up with some kind of action, not 1, 2, 5 things, just like very, very simple action plan. Same with co-sell. It was an area that I did a lot of enablement through co-sell. My team still does that today. Hey, we got this pipeline. Let's go share it. I'll teach you how to sell with AWS, Google, Microsoft on the call. Simplified messaging as well. Like I kind of think the higher up you're selling in an organization, we do security. So if I'm talking to a CISO, I'm not talking in very technical terms. And I think when you're talking to sellers at these companies, simplify it, keep it simple, don't overcomplicate that. Superpower, I'll define a lot of this stuff and I have resources at the end of the presentation to help everyone out. But I've talked about these concepts. It's like knowing the 1-inch thing that you're better, that you add value to the customer, you're better than your competitors and focus on that thing. Drag is another one. It's a term that we came up with. Like if you are dragging other services that drive consumption in the customer's VPC through other services, know what those are, understand how to monetize it. And then obviously the assets you use and the takeaway and the follow-up. Just be consistent. Those are really important and just do things. It's not rocket science, but do things over and over again the same way. In the past, I've talked a lot about the 5 C's. These shouldn't be like, most people know co-sell, co-build, co-market, co-innovate, whatever they are. I'll build all these out, but I think the ones that I really wanted to drill in today, and I put some things in here, most of us can control co-sell. We can control getting pipeline. We can control our pipeline and working with. There's a term I use with a lot of my sales executives now, which is I need you to be selfless with your pipeline. And then when we get you on calls with the sellers, I want you to be selfish. Tell them what you know, where you are, ask for help. Around that, it's very simple. Enablement. For most of the vendors, consumption, marketplace, these are the keys to their heart, certainly for AWS. And so at the end of the day, co-sell is really important. Most of us can control that a lot easier, and it drives pipeline and revenue. But if you just do one side of the game well, you're missing out on the others. So don't forget about co-build, doing co-marketing. That's how you're going to get top of the funnel, help, and lift. The same thing is true for champions. So this is one of the 5 C's, consumption you can't control, but it's how much you're spending in the cloud. I just call this friends helping friends. And so think of it as long-term. Think of it as how you find gifts, how you find access to programs, how you find access to secrets. And also remember, like, I don't use these folks. Like, I would never use my friends, my best friends. And so these are long term relationships, but this is actually how you maximize the potential. This is actually how you get value long term out of your partnership, is getting that unfair favoritism and friends helping friends. All right. So, a topic I said in the beginning, I've never really talked about this, but I started thinking back over the last 3 years why we've been so successful with our partnership with AWS and starting to be successful with our partnership with Google. And it's because over time, I didn't get everything that I wanted in the beginning, but over time, I've been able to amass dotted lines and other resources from the business that have helped me get to a function or a goal or build a relationship or get access to something that I couldn't have before. And now I'm in year 4 of my partnership. These all kind of came year by year. So one of them is just solution architects or developers. I actually have developers that work directly for me. They report to me. Think of every co-build kind of thing that I get asked to do. I can control my own destiny. Now, I could wait in the same line with product and engineering. And I definitely have to work with them on several things that touch different aspects of the product. But there's a lot of things that I get included into launch events, stuff that I just need to say yes in a 5 to 6 week sprint, go build it, prototype it, get it out the door. And that's how we get our name branded with a lot of stuff. Also, the service owners talk to each other. They also think of me first. Oh, go talk to Lacework. They're great. They say yes to everything, right? So I'll caution that a little bit. You don't have to say yes to everything. Still be selfish, but the more you can say yes, the more you're going to get these invitations. Alliances ops is another area. So this is an area where I do have an ops team that helps me, but like you gotta, this is so important. I think AWS, and I heard it yesterday, this is like operational excellence. You got to live in the details. So this is a job that's like high level and low level. Your CRM, the finance folks, finance ops, rev ops, deal desk, whatever you call it. And for most of us, we're the ones instrumenting marketplace. And remember, that touches revenue. The CFO cares. The controller cares. Everyone cares about this stuff. So like make sure that it's well documented. If you own it in the beginning, you're handing it off later. Make sure you document stuff. Think of things in process, procedures, standard operating procedures. Document everything, even if it's like what we did. Like I hated writing docs. I just recorded simple videos. This is how I do a private offer. Click, click, click. Here's now how we use tackle offers. Click, click, click. And we just recorded videos and we have a library of all this stuff that I can now hand it off to other people. Demand marketing. So I didn't get this in the beginning, but I have it now, and boy, is it helpful. So all these gifts that I get, all this access, all of these webinars, launch events, MDS, all that stuff, I'm putting that stuff to work. And I have someone now in the beginning that I was kind of messing around with our corporate marketing and kind of time slicing and stealing resources. Now I have someone that wakes up every day and thinks about what we're doing, my team's doing, and let's go focus. And now we're doing really fun stuff. So in AWS's world, we're doing like immersion days, game days, like all kinds of really fun stuff that are great for top of the funnel, great fun events. And we're able to kind of put a lot of this stuff to work. Think of all your sales plays, things you want to do in verticals. This always helps to drive and just have a common focus and wood behind the arrow. Product marketing is another one. Like I didn't forget how much we write content, messaging, microsites to get competencies and things like that. You need all these resources. Much easier eventually if you can have these resources helping you. They don't report to you, but you need their help. And the more they trust you and the more they understand the value that you're doing for the business, the more you're going to get their time. The last one's a little less known, but we run a CPPO first motion in our international markets, a little bit in the US. But there's huge power in leveraging VARs, SIs, AWS, and growing kind of a lot of the on-prem base moving to the cloud. But certainly there's a lot bigger teams, more resources. I have access to all the SAs that work for those teams now. So this is a resource that it's helped define our strategy, and we run a power of three, which just means Lacework, CSP, and channel of our partner. And so we try to run this in all of our marketing, all of our go-to-market, and our strategy. And so it's just become kind of enriched in the DNA and the sales fabric. So I wanted to leave enough time if we had any questions, or certainly, I can look through the chat, but I wanted to speed through this stuff. Many of these concepts might be new. So I put a little bio about me, where I am. The QR code is to my LinkedIn. I certainly encourage people to follow. There's some resources that I think are hugely valuable. Number one, I learn a ton from my peers just like you folks. So connect with me. We started the largest AWS user forum called Caddyshack. There's a link to join that there. We started a podcast. So I actually have a lot of these 5Cs and hours of recordings here already documented. So there's some links to that in this. And I think Tackle is going to give this deck away to everyone so you guys can have all these resources. If you're very early in the journey, you're talking to like a CRO, you're trying to explain like, why would I partner with the CSPs? Like what value, what do I expect? How do I do these expectations? I was on a kind of a sales CRO podcast called Hunters and Unicorns, and I broke it down from the very beginning. We talked about it like the next generation channel as a branding term. I was fortunate enough, super stoked to speak at reInvent last year. So I got to speak with the amazing Guy Farber, and we talked about co-sell best practices and the lessons learned and the journey we had from year 2, year 3. I put all of my KPIs, how much ACE, how much marketplace, who I hired, when I hired them. So it's a really good story. I'd encourage you all to check it out. It's on YouTube, very easy, but it breaks down a lot of the things that I talked about, the 5Cs, other stuff. And then obviously, like, where would I be without the Tackle forums and Tackle themselves? So I appreciate them inviting me to speak on this thing. Certainly, that's a great thing. How do you connect to your peers? How do you meet peers? I've actually had conversations with folks on the Tackle forum. We took it offline. We had finance people talk to each other, and it's a great way to like learn from your peers, but also go through some of the struggles or the pain points that you're going to hit at any chapter of your partnership. Don't try to do it alone. There's a lot of us that are more than willing to help. And then since this was really about co-sell and how we co-sell, the good news is I wrote a blog. It's on LinkedIn. I actually called it the AWS or CSP Masterclass. And so I broke down exactly how Lacework co-sold, when I kind of had my aha moment, what to ask for, how we talk. And so that's a resource that's written up and for anyone to kind of share. That being said, let me see. I think I have a couple minutes. Let's see if there was any questions that I could go answer. All right. All right, that's a good question right there. I'm a fractional partner lead out of the UK without a team. What do you suggest? So actually, really interesting. I was a one of one for the first year of our partnership. So it was just me. So I always say start with the things that you can control. So if it's, working on co-sell or working on co-build, but I think really at the end of the day, start with co-sell is probably easiest. Put yourself in the AWS APN, the partner advantage, wherever cloud you're built. Jonathan Duggan said that yesterday, and I quote him from Pluralsight, like, yeah, you start with wherever cloud you're built. That's who your first partner is going to be. So you definitely want to like start with their programs, start with their co-sell, take your pipeline, take your renewals, figure out how to go meet the sellers and kind of put that together. Through those conversations, you'll start to refine and figure out what's your better together, what's that right message. But that's where I would start. Challenge to overcome. I mean, I have a new challenge every day and a new excitement. I think for me, it's always like hiring, recruiting. I think it's always there's new sellers coming in, new sales leaders. We're growing into new markets. I think every market you touch is a little bit different. So there isn't a one size fits all. You just kind of have to iterate, fail fast, do it all over again. And Mr. Gianluca suggests to a startup that cannot afford Tackle. Everyone can afford Tackle because you're selling millions of dollars through the ROI. I would actually just say, look, you can always start with, with the marketplace. You can build some of this stuff yourself. But I think once you start getting into scale, you certainly start getting into multiple CSPs and marketplaces. You can't do this on your own. I've been a Tackle customer, happy for 3.5 years. I couldn't imagine doing this all over again without Tackle. And so that's what I would say. I think we're right on time. So I will exit out of here. I'll join the lounge. So if anyone has questions or just wants some interaction, I'll stick on there for a little while. But I thank everyone for joining. And thank you, Tackle, for having me.